Good afternoon, everyone. Really? You are listening to KDUX. Really? Whoever's doing that.
That's breaking the rules.
Yes. Which is ironic because today we're going to be talking about breaking the rules. So, you are listening to KDUX Web Radio, broadcast live from Richland College in Dallas, Texas. We are the voice of Richland College. Views expressed on this show are Manzi's own, unless otherwise stated, and do not reflect the opinion of KDUX Web Radio, Richland College, or the Dallas County Community College District. So, this is the second Philosophy Club radio hour of the semester, but it is the first one that we're actually having something to talk about. So exciting. So on Tuesday, where did my mic go? Oh, never mind. Sorry, a little technical difficulty here. It's the user, not the mics itself. Okay. That was a burn on myself. Anyway, so on Tuesday from 2 to 3, Philosophy Club, please join us. We talked about rules and is it ethical to break them? So it was a really interesting discussion. We had a lot of really cool opinions and ideas. Yeah. So would anybody like to help me out with a recap or a re-quack?
Cursing, watch it.
Well, I guess since I'm president, hi, my name's Cameron.
Hey, President, what's up?
I'm just gonna
Gloss over that. Just
Off
move
to a
on.
great start.
Thank you.
So we realized that when we talked about rules, we could define them into two different categories.
Mm-hmm.
We could define them as societal rules or trends, and rules such as rules that are set legally by the government or some foreign body.
Right.
That's all I had.
Okay. All right. So, people started asking, like, what are rules exactly? And is it ethical to ever break them? And some people said yes, and some people said no, that it's not ethical to ever break rules. And other people said yes. You know, what if the rules are,
Shooting a
people?
I was going to say shooting a buffalo from the second floor of a hotel.
Oh, right. Yeah. There are some rules that just don't make sense. Like there's some rules that are in different countries or states of the United States. Countries. Wow. And I'm taking a government class too. That's just sad. Wow, I'm doing a really bad job today.
It's been a long week.
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
Okay, so for example,
What was the one you told me?
yes, this was the one I wanted to say in the club, and I actually didn't get to. So up in the northern United States, where the Quakers used to live, there used to be a rule, and there still is, or it's a law, that you could shoot a traitor in the back as it was leaving your state, as he or she was leaving your state, not it. But, I mean, obviously that's not something that anyone does or could do. And someone else brought a rule or a law up that said that you can't shoot a buffalo from the second floor of a hotel. So obviously there are rules that are not fully followable anymore. So it's actually kind of interesting because in class today, we were talking about whether or not the Constitution should be rewritten every 20 years. So
Oh gosh, no.
there was a lot of interesting opinions on it. So and it didn't always have to be like rewritten from scratch, but should there be some things that we should take out or add in? And Professor Manzi said something that was really interesting. He said, imagine yourself 20 years ago. And a lot of you here can't even imagine yourselves 20 years ago because you're not 20 yet. You would be -1.
I was going to say I was dead, but like I hadn't even been born. So.
That's just dark.
I mean, I'm 22, but I don't remember me as a 2-year-old.
Yeah,
Right,
if you're
exactly.
1 or 2, it's kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, exactly.
Fuzzy.
I was 4, so. You guys are babies. Okay. Beside the point.
You want me to call you an old lady now? Or?
Basically.
Yes, madam.
Wait, so
I'm gonna beat you.
what did people say?
What was I saying? Oh, right. So,
About the Constitution,
right.
and then I
Yes,
said,
yes,
what
yes.
did people say? Because you said people had some very interesting opinions.
They did. Some people said, yes, absolutely, the Constitution should be rewritten.
Were they progressives? That doesn't matter.
Just coming out swinging today, huh?
No
pick
shade,
it up,
no
right.
shade.
Right for the throat.
Shade, guys. It's shade.
All the shade.
All the shade. Yeah, so some people said, wait, what? I'm sorry.
Cameron already showed me that earlier.
My dad's texted me something. Busy now, Dad. I'm just kidding. Please don't hurt me. I'm just kidding.
We're so
you
not
definitely
focused right
look
now.
I
busy.
know. I think I had too much coffee today. I really do.
Should we introduce anybody?
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
just introduce
Let's
the
do
new
that.
people. Just
Considering there are 5 people on air today.
Yes, 5 people on air. I think I'm being pressured because Professor Manzi's listening, and he's usually the
well, you can't.
person that does this. So
You can't do any worse than me. I've already insulted liberals, so.
Ouch. Okay. I'm gonna take that to heart. I'm just kidding. All right. So I am Hannah Watson, communications officer of the Philosophy Club. To my right is Cameron Morrow, who has already identified herself as the president of the world. To my left, would y'all like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. Skylar, freshman member of the Philosophy Club this semester.
Welcome.
We're glad to have you.
Yes.
Hello, I'm Jessica. I'm a nursing major, and I am a guest today.
We're glad to have you as well.
Woohoo.
I'm Matt. I'm a computer science major, and I'm a member of the Philosophy Club.
And also my brother. So he
That
is.
too.
I see you every day.
Communications.
Ooh, I'm
Junior.
sensing some nepotism going on here.
Probably.
I'm not about it.
Did you hear my comment?
No.
I was like, I see you every day.
True.
That's
So
some
I'm just-
intimate stuff, guys. Amazing. We're really diving into the philosophy of seeing your friends every day.
This is true.
Just
Yes.
bonds
right.
forged
It's
through
lonely
flame.
out there.
It is.
Out there in the real world.
Yes.
This is a prime example of whether or not it's ethical to break the rules because we're totally breaking the rules because we're totally not on subject. So
It's true. It's very true. Okay, so let's just kind of dive into it. So who here thinks it is? I just want to get some opinions out there. Who thinks
I have
it's
a
ethical to
strong
break the rules?
thing.
Go
to
ahead,
start off
please.
with.
Absolutely.
I think in lots of cases, is it ethical to even follow rules?
Oh, that is interesting.
Think
Okay.
about in South Africa. Is that the state? Yeah.
Yeah.
The country, not the state. I'm terrible.
okay,
Apartheid, the legal separation of like colored people and white people was like a very strong law until like the 1900s or the 20th century. And it is that an ethical law to follow in that case?
That's really that's an interesting distinction, and I think that you're onto something there. Honestly, there are rules. I guess we could. I mean, conversations always go back to this, but like World War II.
there it is.
Yeah, exactly. People who protected the Jews and people that Hitler was trying to kill. Is it ethical to say, hey, I'm hiding the Jews in my basement? Go ahead, you know? Or is it, I would say that's not ethical in the least, right? So I don't know how we decide then. So I wonder, I'm thinking about this.
Can I say something?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I think I said this too in Philosophy Club, but I think it may have gotten overlooked.
Yeah, glossed over a little bit. It's kind of hard to get everybody's opinions out there. It gets crazy, so.
Yeah, but mine is important. We should listen.
Got it.
Oh, okay. Anyway, we're just gonna pretend I wasn't just a big narcissist right there.
Yeah.
Okay. So, how we were saying, like, there's societal rules and then there's rules of legality. A lot of times, especially when we've seen, institutional racism what we've seen with slavery, what we've seen with segregation, what we've seen in other countries, and a lot of people that are oppressed because of their gender, religion, or their race, what we've seen is that the society's feelings bleed over into what people make law. So it's not so much, when I think we've said this before on Challenging the Narrative, it's not the government that's corrupt, it's the people in government. And if you have people that are following certain rules in society and they get positions of power and they're making the rules are going to reflect how they feel personally. And so I think when we're talking about what rules should be broken, we should be breaking rules that clearly are in the interest of certain people and not as people as a whole. Like, we can all agree, or at least most of us, that we shouldn't murder people. But that's in the best interest of all of us, not just some of us. Mm-hmm. If we say that, oh, blacks are only supposed to be in one part of the room, whites are only supposed to be in one part of the room, whose best interest is that? It's not in everyone's best interest. So I think the rules that we look to follow should be rules that are in everybody's best interest. And the rules that leave out certain groups of people because of certain factors that they can't control, I think those are rules that need to be broken. I think a lot of what I was saying, I think that may have gotten misconstrued, because there are rules that need to be broken, but those are rules that aren't necessarily for our protection. There are rules that are meant to keep people subdued and in a place of being inferior, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, that definitely does. And another thing that came up as well was, why is freedom kind of put in the same place as breaking the rules? Like, when you break the rules, you feel this sort of, someone said, adrenaline rush, or this rush of, oh, I'm free. I'm allowed to do what I want to do. Which, I mean, obviously some rules, you're not going to break those. I mean, you're not going to go murder somebody and be like, woohoo, I'm free. But like,
liberated.
Yeah. But I guess to some extent, I wonder if some rules are kind of oppressing people in some ways. And then in order to feel free, you feel like you have to kind of break out of those bounds. Mm-hmm. Like,
smoking. Like, I mean, like, it's not unnecessarily, it's kind of like a rule for people that want to be healthy. They want to live a clean life. You shouldn't smoke. So we could say that's a rule. But clearly people do that because it's like, my life, I'm going to do what I want to do. You can't tell me how to live.
Right. Or women shouldn't talk in church.
Yeah.
Well, there you have to draw an arbitrary line in what you think is helpful for somebody or what you think is damaging to somebody. And a lot of that is just very arbitrary to put on. Like, should there be laws to prevent certain people versus like their aptitude? If someone's really good at math, is it bad? Is it in our best interest to steer them in a career away or towards math? Or if they're going into an art field, should we consider that in like placing laws?
Right. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Also, an interesting way about thinking about how restrictive rules can be is in very controlling households and where kids feel they have to escape to meet their friends or something. You can see the ramifications and how they feel free or how they feel really restricted under their parents' rule in a lot lot of cases.
Right. Oh, yeah. When your parents first tell you, "Oh, don't do this," the first thing you question is, you probably say, "Well, why can't I do that?"
Surprise!
I want to go try and do that because obviously they're hiding something from me that
it's reverse psychology.
Good for me.
Basically.
Yeah, exactly.
So, are we talking about rules or laws? Or are we talking about both? Because there's a difference, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I think they're intrinsically involved, and all that matters is the scale. Really, like
laws are larger scale and rules are much more individualized.
Yes, but also rules don't have like legal documents always attached to them.
Oh,
like, you have social rules that you follow oftentimes where it's like nobody speaks, but like if you're in a line waiting for something, you're not right behind the person who's like in front of you. You always have that buffer of space. It's like those social rules also.
So like manners and politeness.
Yes,
it's
very much
a subsection of rules.
Don't cut the line. Don't talk in the library.
I was going to say, could I use that example? So like in class, in club, someone asked, how do I feel about if someone cut in front of me? And I said, I honestly wouldn't care. I wouldn't be happy about it, but I'm not going to like pull the person out of line and be like, you shouldn't do that. That's like a rule you shouldn't break. I'm not going to be like overly dramatic about that. And I think that's because it's not necessarily a law. Like you said, it's not founded by documents. It's not something.
Also, you do that because you don't want to cause a scene, and it's kind of traditionally seen that you don't want to cause a fuss in a lot of situations because it inconveniences a lot of people. So either way, you're following some sort of structure that is not told by, it's not written down anywhere.
Yeah, that goes.
I'm just saying, like you were saying, there are things that are held to a more higher, it's a higher magnitude in which we feel almost obligated to follow, and then there's other things we feel like it really doesn't hurt anyone to break.
So how about taking this on a more political level? There are some societal rules that we feel obligated to follow or obligated to agree with because everybody else is doing it, when really maybe in reality people don't agree on certain things, but they're afraid to state their own opinion. They're afraid to not follow the crowd. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very
you
much
see that
so.
a lot in college classes when the professor will ask a question and you're 90% sure you know the answer, but you don't want to say anything because in case you're wrong, everyone's gonna judge you.
Exactly.
Even though that's most of the case, that's not true. And if you get it wrong, they're not gonna think, "Wow, he's an idiot."
No, yeah, it's very much of a more internalized problem in that case because it's like that philosophy. Everybody's thinking about themselves. If you get a question wrong, nobody's going to remember, like, even 10 minutes from then.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. That's interesting, yeah. Also, quick welcome to Trace, Vice President.
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry to pull a Manzi. All these department meetings,
Yeah. Run late.
All
I'll try
these
to tell him.
I always say they're going to end at the 45.
I know. We always ask him to meet on Thursday and not Friday. No. Man, we're really burning Manzi. We're going to go by his office and he's
He'll
going to
be
be
okay.
like,
He's
you guys can't
now.
come in here.
It's all in good faith, though.
Yes.
I think so.
Actually, we're talking about bad faith in class. That's interesting. Anyway.
What are we talking about?
We're just
Rules,
talking about
and
rules.
whether it's
yeah.
ethical to break them.
Yes.
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 Well, it depends.
Exactly. So there's subsections of rules. There's subsections of laws. And
Yeah, I mean, rules make me think of, like, arbitrary.
I think rules are also
Designations.
more individualized as well. They're more to each individual person or more personal to people rather than laws, which are more like, don't speed and don't murder people, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, rules seem more informal, like...
Yeah. Like, don't talk in class unless you raise your hand.
Or even, like, on the radio, don't swear on the radio. Okay, that'd be a rule. But we'd consider that a rule. But, I mean, I guess you could also consider that a law, couldn't you? Because it's something that's binding.
Well, Jack isn't
codified.
here. We could break it. I'm just kidding.
Well, I think this comes down to what I think is a very fundamental question in asking whether something is ethical, is that judging something by an arbitrary set of rules is very flawed because everybody's morals are structured and built differently fundamentally from when we are born and raised.
Could I say something?
Yeah.
So, if we're talking about informal, things that are individualized, things that may sometimes overlap because some people feel the same way. Like, there's certain things, like when you're talking about manners. Well, that's kind of universal to a certain extent. Sometimes our rules do overlap and that almost everyone feels the same way. And so then it almost seems that it's law, like it's law abiding, that we have to do it. But it's not. It's still just a rule.
Like it's a given.
Yeah. Like most parents would probably say they prefer their kids not to color on the wall. That doesn't make it law. It's a rule, and almost everyone follows that rule, but it doesn't make it a law. So in that case, then yeah, it's okay to break the rules. I mean, we've all done it. I mean, that's what mistakes are, essentially. It's where you've literally broken the rules. And sometimes those mistakes may bleed into, like, you doing something criminal and, like, may lead to you being in jail. But I think you can break the rules. I think that's essentially what mistakes are, when you break the rules.
So this is actually really interesting because it kind of reminds me of the my mom said, "Is it okay to break the rules?" Yes, mommy says so. I like that.
I have a rule that makes it okay. But, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So this kind of reminds me of the fact-value dichotomy. So there are quote-unquote rules that we see as facts, like don't draw on the walls or don't, be mean to somebody. But these are essentially values they're not necessarily facts, right? Unless we place value on them, right? So I think when we're small, we take what our parents tell us. We take these things that they tell us and we say, these are fact. Like my mom used to tell me when I was growing up that the cars that don't have a roof on them, that's because they played their music too loud. And I swear to God, I believed her.
Goodness.
That was fact. Now, as I grew older, I realized that that wasn't entirely true. But it actually is, guys. I'm just kidding.
Are you sure though?
That's a fact. So there
Fact's
is a
not real.
differentiation.
I don't believe in cars, actually.
I think
Well, that's a value. That's your opinion.
I
We
think
respect your opinion, Jessica. I'm just
Thank
kidding.
an interesting example of people breaking the rules and questioning ethics is the measles outbreak that's happening in Washington right now.
Oh boy.
So basically, parents are saying there's most states have laws that say your child has to have these vaccinations at this certain age. But Washington and Oregon, some places like these don't have such laws, and if you think vaccines cause whatever, that you don't have to vaccinate your child, and now a disease that was eliminated in 2000 has made a comeback because people aren't vaccinating kids, and there's about 50 cases right now.
Wow.
And it's spreading really fast.
And it's real terrible because when illnesses come back, they have great potential to change and mutate and then affect the general populace.
That's interesting because also, I mean, we're kind of getting off subject, but it's worth saying anyway. Like the stuff that you put on your hands to kill
Hand
germs.
sanitizer?
Yeah, hand sanitizer.
You can only put it on so many times before it actually becomes ineffective.
Right, but even like germs that are around now are mutating to conquer that anti-germ thing.
all
So
screwed.
we're making, basically, we're
the
making
next
these
several
super
dozen years.
viruses. Anyway,
I would say it's interesting listening to y'all, though, that all the times that we're talking about whether it's okay or break the rules or not, it's all reactionary in the sense that we find that this rule is inadequate. Or, for instance, I was taking a test this morning, and the professor who administered the test, it was an incompetent test. There was no question number 8. We hadn't learned there was a question about something we hadn't learned yet. Questions 25 and 26 were labeled as 34 and 35, and question 31 was labeled as question 41.
Was this on purpose?
No, this was
Good gosh.
this is the test he handed out.
that's
so,
bad.
Yeah, it
and
is.
so someone asked me, "What's the answer to this question?" Just whispering, because the professor, he's dealing with all these students who are like, you can't give us this test. And it's interesting because if it's a good test, I would never have considered even giving him the answer, right? But because there's this norm that's been transgressed, that norm of being a professor giving you a competent test, I actually considered for a second giving him the answer, but then I was like, I can't do this, I'd be cheating. But the point is,
That's where you draw the line.
I thought that was going to end with you saying I gave him the answer.
no, I'm perfect. But the thing is, even then, I'm thinking about breaking the rules only in this reactionary sense of this rule is no longer adequate. So even as we discuss whether it's ever ethical to break the rules, we're still limiting ourselves to this idea of maybe it's only ethical when we find the rules to be inadequate or when they've already been transgressed.
So
And I
when
think
we
we're
place
missing the
values-
ultimate question of, is it ever ethical to break the rules just to break the rules? Is it ever ethical? Do we have to be justified to break the rules?
Could we just say it depends?
Or is it justified to just break the rules? You see the difference there?
Interesting. Yeah, definitely.
I think it
Yeah, that's a
depends.
very
I feel like it's
interesting.
on an individual basis, and it's depending on the situation and the circumstance. Like you said, you probably never would have thought that if the test had been perfect, but the test wasn't perfect. So then that led you to a situation where you had to actually debate whether or not you had to think, well, should it be okay for me to cheat? I mean, the test is screwed up, so it is what it is. I feel like it depends.
Because are we even breaking the rules at that point? If we're breaking the rules from some sense of justification that the rule is inadequate, hasn't the rule already been broken in the sense that it's no longer efficacious?
I think that's how we get things like manslaughter.
Interesting.
Ooh.
Because if you kill someone in self-defense, you've still did
Killed
something.
something.
You've still killed
someone.
someone.
It's very situational.
But it's not to the extent, oh, well, I pre-calculate, like I said, like, oh, this person comes home at this time, they come in. I'm not gonna. That's gonna make me sound weird.
I was just about
Let
to
me
look at you
explain
like,
the scene.
are
It
you
was
okay there,
Saturday
Cameron?
morning.
Exactly.
In theory, if you get charged with manslaughter, it's not like you pre-calculated it. But then again, even manslaughter is broken down into involuntary manslaughter.
And then you have degrees of that.
Nancy Slaughter. What?
I was trying to do a pun.
No,
didn't
it's
work
just
out.
creepy. No, just
I'm
stop.
sorry. Oh man. At least it's not like my knock jokes.
And I think you've seen that with laws. I mean, as we've come to progress as a society, laws have been broken down into different distinctions. It's not just universal. Oh, you robbed a store, you're going to jail for robbing a store. You can go to jail for robbing a store for multiple things. Having a weapon, or who else? I don't know. But like, there's different reasons why you can go to jail. It's not just plain generalized robbery. You're gonna go to jail. There's other reasons, like robbery plus this, and this. Like when you see people that get charged with stuff, I mean, they're getting charged with like 40 different things you didn't even know someone could be charged with. You thought it was just one basic, simple crime, and here they are charged with 40 different things where they've violated how many laws. I think that just shows how complex rules are, and that
How complex rules are, and that continue.
the moment's gone.
Sorry, I ruined it.
Goodness.
I mean, I think what you're getting at
Yeah,
is that
just-
our society has, increased in population at such a rate and increased in ethnical diversity to a point that we're
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing. Continue. I'm sorry.
I lost my train of thought.
Sorry,
something
I'm
about,
sorry.
See what you did?
Wow, you're
They-
2 for 2, Hannah.
They've progressed, and
Oh, that's true.
And
I
we've
guess
had to
Sartre
change
has to take
something.
responsibility.
Right, like you were saying earlier about, should we change the Constitution in 20 years? I mean, it's a slippery slope because there's definitely things that values we need to withhold and keep, but at the same time, the demands of our society are always going to be changing, and so, like we said on Tuesday, there should be more fluid laws that, change with the times.
But is it really a law then? Because who's deciding when the times are changing? That's too subjective. In my opinion, that's too subjective. Because if we just say, "Oh, the laws need to change with people," like which people? Who do we wait for to change? What kind of who decides when the times are changing? Okay, if you read Crime and Punishment, this guy thinks he's 100 years of everyone else because he's coming up with this modern theory. His theory allows him to kill people. So should the times change to keep up with this one guy who has a new theory, or should they wait till more people? How many people is enough? That's the problem with having laws, I think, that are fluid, is that there's no defined boundaries that say, oh, the times have changed the X amount with X many people. Now let's change the laws to fit.
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah, I'm just spitballing here.
No, but that's how unethical laws become reality.
Mm-hmm.
Is what you're describing there. So laws aren't always a general good or a general bad. They're always ambiguous, and they're always relative to the time, like the zeitgeist.
Interesting. So it's relative to the value that you place on those rules, almost.
So you can start killing people.
No.
Oh,
Real disappointed there.
You heard it here first.
Wow, I am a little bit afraid. She's the president, so
I am
she
so
thinks
glad
she's
we are
above
in the
rules.
other room.
Somebody help
I
me.
mean, dang it, Hannah! Now the FBI is gonna know.
Wait, what?
What?
You
Who
just
said it?
basically told them my plan.
Okay, anyway, but government. Yeah, and so government actually ends up deciding a lot about what laws go into place, and that's why choosing people who you identify with really matters when it comes to government structures and the laws that they make.
Yeah, the problem with, making laws to benefit everyone is that because we're so ethnically diverse, that every little pocket in our country has different needs and different values. So to have just this
I think laws need to be more vague in the large scale. Like, we
Right.
all agree, back to the point, murder is bad. Like, we don't want murder all across the country. But then you get more specific as the governments go down. It's like laws like that are more specific to the country, I mean, to the state and then to the county and just general regions. And that's how you end up policing like individual groups and like microcosms in these communities.
So it's interesting that you said that, because a guy in my class, Marcus, he said somewhat the same thing about the Constitution, that we should make it more vague, more generalized, because then it's open for more interpretation, and that way it can, I don't know, grow with the times. So is that kind of what you're
That's
saying?
how we have.
I would say yes.
idiot we
I
have
wouldn't
now.
agree with changing the Constitution every 20 years, because that's very short term in sight. You would probably see very drastic and sporadic changes as people's opinions change.
changed. Yeah.
And that's in like somebody's lifetime, like 20 years. I'm a very different person from 21 to 41.
Yeah.
I don't think that's fair. I think they would have to be like more general, but like understandable and adaptable. And that's why the Constitution is the U.S. Constitution I'm talking about, is still such like an example of how good and well that was written by how many other constitutions in other countries are based off that very Constitution.
Can I
That's
say
the more-
something?
Yeah.
So, to me, I think also we have to realize there's a downfall to that, because if we do let it just be loose, I mean, we have to think about right now, the Constitution isn't as loose as it could be, but there are presidents that do interpret it loosely. And then we see where there's almost an abuse of power because they interpret it however they want to. So I think, yes, laws to some extent need to be vague, but they also need to have some structure, because if they don't have any structure, then people are just going to come in and do whatever they want. And then we're going to have to make laws so they can't do whatever they want. And it seems like we could have just solved that if we just would have made the laws not as vague.
Well, also with different interpretations, you come in contact with political parties and how they view things. Like someone who is more of like they follow the Constitution very strictly or not.
Right. Well, I think it's interesting because it kind of supports both parties in a way too.
Mm-hmm.
It allows for Democrats and Republicans.
But then, if we get a dictator, then it doesn't seem that good of an idea to let them just kind of interpret it however they want to.
Well, the question is also, is a two-party system ethical in any case? Is any political system ethical?
Nope, except for anarchy.
How is that ethical?
Nice.
Wait, who said that?
Trace.
Oh.
You heard it here first. I stand against a one-party system.
Yeah, that's good. No dictatorships. Right?
Huh.
Yeah, that'd be a one-party system.
What?
No, I'm a dictator, but anyway.
Well,
What?
Most educational systems are dictatorships, though. Let's be real.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I used to think multi-party systems were better, but honestly, multi-party systems encourage more party bigotry than do two-party systems.
Huh.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, so the thing about a multi-party system is that in each electoral district, there are a certain number of votes cast for that party.
Mm-hmm.
And then whoever wins that district, like their representative, or it's not even that district, it's like proportional. So, if 1,000 votes are cast and 600 votes are cast for party A and 300 for party B and 100 for party C, you get the amount of seats in whatever governing body proportional to the votes you receive.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is you're not voting for a specific candidate. And so it's the party itself who picks who constitutes their group that they send to the legislative body. And so if the legislative body is 100 people, and 600 people cast their votes for Party A, let's say, so Party A gets to put 60 people into this legislative body. The problem is you haven't voted for a specific candidate, you've only voted for that party. And so since the party is handpicking those 60 people to go to the legislative body, they're going to pick the people that are most loyal to that party's agenda.
Right.
Okay. that
Also, in
makes
dealing
sense.
that, you would have to deal with gerrymandering and how like manipulation happens.
Well, that happens in a
legally.
two-party. Happens in a
Yeah.
two-party system too.
And voting systems and
There
how
it
they
is.
greatly affect outcomes of all types of elections.
Well, yeah, but just like comparing a two-party and a multi-party system, at least in a two-party system, you get to vote for a specific candidate, so you can at least understand what they stand for.
Right.
In a multi-party system, you're voting for the party itself. And so when the party has that many seats, they're picking their most senior officials to get these spots. And their
Okay.
most senior officials are the people who are most blindly loyal to the party's agenda.
Okay.
That
I
may or
see.
may not be a good thing.
Exactly.
Very much so.
And so obviously there's not as much polarization in a multi-party system because you can have as many parties as you want. So, for instance, in Britain, there's two parties. There's the Conservatives, I think they're called, and the Labour Party. And those are the biggest parties. And they are very, very similar in concept to Republicans and Democrats. So the UK is certainly moving more towards a two-party system. But there are different, there's literally a party that was only created for Brexit. And there's like a Green Party, kind of like in the U.S., except the Green Party actually wins, I think, in Britain.
No,
And so, no, I mean, it's just
Not
like,
even, it's just facts.
yeah, it's true. It's fact. So,
don't vote for third parties.
yeah,
Just
right.
don't.
But in Britain, you can vote for third parties. That's the thing, because they can actually get seats.
It's more feasible over there.
And so there's not as much polarization in a multi-party system. But, you don't get to pick your candidate. So there are trade-offs for both. Because, yeah, I used to think multi-party system was the way to go. It's like, oh, that gets rid of the problem. Kind of, but
you
it
just
encourages...
swap out problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sorry.
Trump would be
No.
an
I
example.
like political science.
No, it's very fascinating.
It
Trump would
is.
be an example of breaking the unspoken rule that you have to be, a politician that's been a senator for X amount of time, and
Right.
He's like,
or
"You know what,
even
I'm just gonna-"
ex-military or whatever,
yeah,
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez broke that too for Congress.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
she has no experience.
Yeah, she just jumped in there.
Cortez.
she's an interesting individual.
Yes, very.
She seems like she's a nice person to have coffee with.
Oh yeah,
It's a very
Can we just
big.
talk about minimum wage? No, I'm just kidding. Don't get me started. Don't get me started. It's math, people. Sixth grade math.
Economics.
Okay,
Sixth grade
so
math.
let's kind of recap a little bit and get slightly back on track.
Of course.
We have like 10 minutes left. So,
Laws.
yes, Matthew.
5 minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, it's 2:50 over here.
6.
It's 2:55.
I got 5 minutes too.
Well, this clock is wrong.
Quick,
Wrong.
someone average them.
2:50.
Somebody complete basic math.
No,
Too
just
long.
kidding.
Podcast ended.
You lose.
We never solved the age-old question about whether laws are ethical or not.
to
So-
be continued.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I don't know if there is a right or wrong answer to that, honestly.
I mean, unless you're going out and killing people.
You
then
gotta
we
go
have
to
a problem.
metaphysics.
Yeah.
I mean, to understand if it's ever ethical to break laws, you have to go into metaphysics. I mean, it all
It all
goes
depends
back
on the
to metaphysics.
circumstance, honestly.
I mean, also, there are situations where it's ethical for people to be killed.
I wouldn't say
But is
ethical,
it?
but it's legal.
Where
Like in
people are
war.
in great pain and they ask to be like let go off of their life support. I think in that case that's ethical if they want to.
But are
end
you
their own
killing
life.
them?
I think it
That's
can
such
be
a
very
gray
much
area.
said that way. If
But
you're
I think
not
it's
helping
ethical
them
for some
live,
people.
you're choosing that they are dying.
Right, but my point is, like, for some people that wouldn't be seen as killing them. For some people that would be seen as killing them. For some people that would be seen as okay. For some people that would
But
be
there
seen as something you
is-
never do. And the point is, all of those viewpoints reflect your own metaphysical perceptions.
Absolutely, but there is a loss of life in that situation.
Right, but how you value life, that's metaphysics. And so the problem is when we come to this question of whether it's ever ethical to break rules or not, we're avoiding. I mean, I missed a lot of it, sorry.
No, it's okay.
But I think, especially in Philosophy Club, I noticed we stay away from the metaphysics as if that's not important or as if we can answer the question without it. I don't think you can. Because even the way you look at rules themselves are defined by your metaphysical perceptions.
That's interesting.
Well
So
put,
explain
well
that a
put.
little bit.
Well, I just mean, like, whether you believe in a natural law, okay, where does a natural law come from, though? Maybe that could be a theologically derived natural law.
From, like,
Maybe that could be
Judeo-Christian
a humanistic natural law that begins with the value of like the sanctity of human life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but I mean, even just in those two examples, we've already touched on two enormous things of does God exist, and do humans actually have dignity? Like, is there a special human dignity or sanctity of human life? And those are completely separate questions, right? And those are
absolutely.
metaphysical questions. So, I mean, just the first two examples go all the way back to metaphysics. And so for me, I don't think you can answer this question of whether it's okay to break rules without going into metaphysics.
That's really interesting. I'm actually
That's
kind of glad you
deep.
said that. Yeah.
Not so much deep as something we haven't thought about, though.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
something that we need to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Because even in the political realm, right, if you think, okay, laws are just what the government says, okay, but the government can't always be right. But if the government's not right, who is? Your own perceptions? Okay, well, how can you trust your own perceptions?
But
why
I think
are
that's
your
why we
perceptions
have the people, the majority rule, because then it's not just one person that we're going off of. It's everybody. It's the average out of everybody, right?
And
It's,
so the average out of everybody can't create Nazism or socialism or
Right.
communism.
It
Oh.
The
depends
average
on the
is going to
people.
always be
Get-
right.
I think
Oh,
also
man.
this also brings back the importance of voting, especially here in America. I mean, right now we have a opportunity to choose who represents us, and if we don't get out and vote, well, clearly the people that do get out and vote, they choose for all the rest of us. So if we really want things to be fair and we don't want something like communism or a dictatorship, then it's important that we get out and vote, and we ourselves run. If we don't see anybody we don't like what people are saying,
do
run.
something about it.
Do something
Yeah.
about
Don't
it.
vote the change
Right,
you want to see,
because
be the change.
The
Yeah.
majority
amen.
The majority of America has created slavery. It's kept women from voting.
I mentioned earlier apartheid in South America.
Yeah,
Right,
apartheid in South
exactly.
Africa, like all of this. That's
But it was
all the
also the
majority
people-
created
But it's also the
Ouch.
people that overturned all of that too. So
eventually.
eventually, but that's the world.
But I don't think we can always trust the
opinion
majority
of the people, right?
to
So how do we
fix problems
find,
without
then?
creating new ones.
So how do we find what's right then?
Metaphysics. See, you just asked, how do we find what's right? That is the ultimate
Very-
metaphysical question.
Very arbitrary question.
In
that
5
will-
minutes, we've gone from discussing rules to metaphysics. And see, that's my point. Like, we can't discuss
It's escapable.
rules.
Right.
We can't discuss the nature of obedience or of right and wrong without
Without
going into
metaphysics.
Amazing. Amazing.
So on
point
that
by
note, you
everybody.
guys,
We out.
yeah. You are listening to KDUX Web Radio, broadcast live from Richland College in Dallas, Texas. We are the voice of Richland College. Views expressed on this show are Manzi's own. You can thank Manzi for all of us. And do not reflect.
We are beautiful children.
What?
That was weird. She's wearing
What?
a marijuana shirt today, so
Wait, really?
Let everyone know what I do
proud
on
of
the
you, Cam.
weekends. Good
I'm
gosh.
proud of you, Cameron.
We're in Texas, guys.
Wait,
Exactly.
marijuana's not legal yet?
No.
No.
I gotta
not
run.
at all.
No, I'm just
Not
kidding.
even medical. Not even medical, I think.
nope, not medical.
Just
either.
kidding. I don't smoke weed.
But we can definitely head to
No,
California.
don't believe you.
Again, all the opinions
Yet.
expressed here are not of our college.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the opinions reflected here are not that of KDUX Web Radio.
But we
They're
will be
Manzi's.
college.
We
Yes,
already
they're
went over
Manzi's.
this. They're Manzies.
Yes,
But we will be heading to California over the weekend, where marijuana is legalized.
or Colorado.
Or Boston.
Or like literally anywhere.
Anywhere that isn't
Meg.
Texas.
I don't know how we got on this. This is weird.
Cameron's
it's a weird
shirt.
way to end. Yeah. Sorry, that was
It
my
always
bad,
ends
guys.
with Cameron.
It does. Everything. It begins and ends with Cameron, president of the world and the Philosophy Club. All right, you guys, come see us on Tuesdays from 2 to 3. We will be discussing closure next week. Please follow all our social medias. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
MySpace.
Yes. Wait, what? We have a
I
MySpace.
know.
Yeah.
Communications.
So, wow. Whoever said that.
What's the other one? MySpace and
I don't even know.
Tumblr.
Oh,
I don't
Ooh,
even
that
know how to
sounds dead
use
now.
that.
who still uses Tumblr?
I was
That's like
joking.
people use
Philosophers
it.
still use Tumblr. Do
You
we
should
think
make a
Manzi has a Tumblr?
Yeah,
Ooh.
definitely.
No.
I was trying to be like hip. We definitely know he doesn't
Welcome
have a
to the
Tumblr.
podcast that never ends.
Yes, we do. Okay, so come see us Tuesdays from 2 to 3. We'll be discussing closure. And if you can't make it, really? If you can't make it, please come see us Thursdays in the
Valentine's
radio
Day.
room.
Valentine's
Oh,
Day.
gross. I hate Valentine's
Gross.
Day. It sucks. Oh, let's talk about Valentine's Day. That should be, oh, man.
Next time.
Okay, anyway, we're going to
That could
think
go
about
along
this.
with closure, though.
Yeah, very
That
much
goes-
so.
Okay, we're going
You
to talk
gonna need
about this.
closure if somebody break your heart?
I broke their heart, so I'll be savage like that.
What if
Okay.
they don't have a heart?
Is it
If I
ethical
only
to
had a
have a
brain.
heart? Next time.
Next time on Philosophy Club, you
We gotta
guys.
end this.
Wow, this is just terrible. Sorry, Manzi, in advance. Anyway, as Manzi always says at the end of his podcast, think about it and also forget about it.
What was I gonna say?